I think we're in the best place we've ever been, I confidently and happily exclaimed to one of my best friends. It was mid-November, and my husband had just come home from his umpteenth deployment. One night, we started talking about our relationship, having the coming home talk, digging into the stuff you put on the back burner during deployment so they can focus on the mission. Our issues resurfaced like a familiar diss track: finances, sex, juggling our careers. Except this time, the conversation felt different. I had become different. I was new. Emboldened by finally finishing my PhD, a 9-year marathon that I completed while moving across the country twice. Thank you. I'd left the never good enough environment of academia and started my big girl policy research job where I earned real adult money for the first time in my life. People complimented my work. I was contributing to a team. I felt valued. I was also inspired by the Me Too movement. The phrase unapologetic woman kept ringing in my head like a mantra and a pump-up jam. Just 1 month later, my best friend was hearing something very different from me. My marriage was over. My husband and I got together when we were 19, and now 12 years later, we had just entered our 30s. The most formative years of my life were shaped with him and by him. I slowly, over our first few years together, started deferring my thoughts to his thoughts and opinions. I was young, I was in love with him, and I cared deeply what he thought about me because he was my world. My self-esteem issues and the scripts of fairy tale romance sucked me into a vortex. I felt like I needed him because he completed me. I also grew up watching my mom cater to my dad's every whim as both his wife and full-time caretaker. My dad sustained a traumatic brain injury from a workplace accident when I was a young child that fundamentally altered my family's life. My parents loved each other, but my mom always entertained my dad's eccentric and ridiculous requests, even though it was often to the detriment of herself and their quality of life. So my love imprint was, you cater to your partner always, no matter what. You pour everything into them. That's it. That's what love is. So in my relationship, I didn't even think about whether my husband was also pouring into me. Over the years, I had learned to brace myself when I shared how I felt with my husband because acknowledgement of my feelings often came wrapped in deflection and blame. And so I built up my own way to deal with it. I also pointed the weapons at me. I was the problem. I was deficient. Something was wrong with me. I was on a perpetual quest to just be better so that I could earn his love. During that first coming home talk, sitting across the living room from one another, I took the risk. I spoke up. I said the things that I was feeling without guarding against what I knew he would say back. I tried on being the unapologetic woman that I wanted to be. So I asked for more care and consideration for my feelings. I wanted more recognition for the things that I did for us. I wanted my career to be on equal footing as his. To an outside observer, the change that I felt within myself wouldn't have registered. But to me, expressing myself in that way felt monumental. In the days that followed, my soul felt free and lighter. Somewhere in the depths of my consciousness, I thought, is this what it's supposed to feel like? I felt like we were opening a new chapter in our relationship, the one where I was coming into my own. As it turned out, it wasn't a new chapter. Instead, he just closed the book. Within a handful of days, our honeymoon period faded. My husband's compliments and our shared sweetness turned to critiques to doubts, and doubts into a downward spiral I couldn't control and I didn't understand. I started to panic. I went to my go-to. I blamed myself. all those years where I was caught up in my own anxiety, worrying about graduate school, self-conscious about my body, lacking confidence, just trying to figure myself out, why hadn't I just focused more on him and on us, I asked myself. I scrambled to find a couples counselor. During our second weekly session, my husband ended it. I just don't feel the same way about you anymore, was the hollow explanation he gave. It was the only substantive thing he could point to while shrugging his shoulders like he just didn't know. He never, even to this day, had the courage to admit his truth to my face. He had fallen in love with someone else. He ended things days before Christmas. Despite the news of our divorce, we went through the motion of playing holidays when we visited his family on Christmas Day. This was followed by New Year's Eve, where one of my best friends got married. Standing in her wedding with my sparkly dress, I cried and tried to make it look like happy tears, but the whole wedding felt like needles piercing every organ. We returned home on New Year's Day to pack up our house and begin our separate lives. Happy New Year to me. Just 2 days later, still jet-lagged, I woke up to my husband looking gaunt and asking me to sit down on the couch. I didn't know what was going on, but I could tell that something was up. I wondered if he had something to confess to me. Maybe he would tell me something that made everything make sense. Maybe he would tell me something with substance. Instead, he told me his sister had died. Suicide. She was only 28. I had known her since she was 16. We thought of each other as sisters. As an only child, she was my only experience of what it's like to have a sibling, and I was her only experience of having a sister. I never felt more loved like a sister than when she would gleefully ask to braid my hair. When she ran her fingers through my hair, it felt like a luxury I didn't deserve, to be doted on with no expectations in return. I had just seen her days earlier over the holidays, and we didn't hug goodbye because she had a cold. In the days that followed, I started wading through the intricate web of grief that life had just handed me. At her funeral, it felt like I was living inside a cruel, multi-layered metaphor. The death of my sister-in-law, the death of a family I'd come to call my own, the death of my relationship. My parents and I sat in the pew behind the ones reserved for family, and I watched the people who had been my family file in together. Suddenly, I wasn't family anymore. I had been worried that I wouldn't cry at her funeral. I wanted the depth of my feelings for her to show, but I had been oscillating between catatonic states of pain and numbness, just trying to process everything. Then the music started, raining down from the vaulted church ceilings above. My sister-in-law was a jazz singer, singing gigs at local bars and jazz clubs in town. Within a few seconds, I recognized the music. It was her voice. It started with just slow, melodic sounds, no words. It sounded angelic. And that's when I lost it. I started crying, and I didn't stop crying for most of the program. The reception, though, snapped me back to my own painful reality. Several people came up to me asking how we were doing because they didn't know that our marriage had just ended. I didn't tell them. I just said an acceptable jumble of words. It's hard. We're hanging in there. He's doing okay. After the funeral, while everyone else was still deep in their grief, I had to stuff mine away, suppressing it for later. I was moving in 1 month. I had to find an apartment, build a budget, figure my shit out. Survival mode meant there wasn't time for me to feel or experience the magnitude of her loss. I had hoped she would understand. During the next few months, I built grit because I had to. I learned how to live with a perpetual nagging pit in my stomach. I cried rivers and I laid awake in bed for hours at night just staring up into the dark ceiling. I found the friends who would let me say the things over and over again and still listened. I learned how to force feed myself. I fielded compliments from peripheral acquaintances on how great I looked because even though I was in the worst place I'd ever been, the less women weigh, the more we're valued. I smiled, even through my broken soul. I came to appreciate the power of going through the motions and how it will eventually get you back on your feet. I clung to the smallest bright spots, like coffee or an encouraging text from a friend, as the tiniest of North Stars. Even though I had abandoned my sense of self in this relationship, I also found the bedrock of my self-worth. She was still there, waiting for me all along. While I mourned the loss of my life as I knew it, I didn't miss him. I didn't long for our past memories or what was. It was as if a switch had flipped from fully on to fully off. Almost immediately, my gut knew I didn't deserve this. I didn't deserve someone that I'm married to leave me suddenly with almost no explanation. And once I came to know the truth of the affair, I knew I didn't deserve a lie or omission of truth that would leave me beating myself up for the rest of my life, thinking that I wasn't good enough. Well, some of it was about me. Some of it was about us. He conveniently, strategically left out the part that was about him. I realized I had closed myself off from the world when I was in my marriage. I had put on self-imposed blinders. I had stopped making eye contact with strangers. I stopped flirting with the luscious, delightful, weird, and sometimes funny experience of being a human and being alive. I closed myself off from the kind of curiosity that just nudges you to unfold those new layers of yourself. Throughout the next several months, my therapist had me dive into who I was before my ex-husband. What was high school me like? How did I feel in my body? What interested me? How would friends describe me back then? And I remembered how vivacious, confident, and bold I was. I began slowly excavating my soul from the wreckage. It turned out that the worst period of my life, in fact, became the best thing for me. I accepted the challenge because I had to. Then I accepted the challenge because I wanted to. Now I speak up. I use my voice. I ask myself what I think first. I seek reciprocity in my relationships. I pay attention to how safe I feel with others when I want to express myself. I seek to connect and engage with my life and others around me because experiencing the pain of death reminds you that life is meant to be lived in full color. I flirt with life again, and now it flirts with me back. I found myself, I reclaimed myself, and I did it for me. Thank you.
VAMP first timer, Sidra Montgomery.